Our text for today is from Isaiah chapter 35 here on the third Sunday in the season of Advent. I won't be showing any verses on the screen, so if you would like to follow along, Isaiah chapter 35 in our church Bibles is found on page 595. Page 595. Are you experiencing the joy of the holiday season? The joy of Advent, the joy of Christmas? What exactly is joy? How do we get more of it? How can we have more joy-filled lives? For these 4 Sundays in Advent, we're looking at 4 different key passages in the prophet Isaiah, as Pastor Micah said, written 700 years before that first Christmas, before the birth of Christ. And we're looking at some of the 4 big themes, ideas, concepts, oftentimes associated with the season of Advent, which is hope, peace, joy, and love. And as we'll see, these themes, these ideas and concepts are really interconnected with one another. But what is joy? Well, joy, I think many of you know this, joy is not the same thing as happiness. Happiness is dependent upon your particular circumstances. And so if things are going good in your life and there are happy things happening in your life, then you experience and you feel happy. If things are going according to your plan and everything's great and wonderful, then you can have those moments of happiness. And I mean moments because you could even have everything you ever hoped or dreamed or desired for, and still this happiness feeling will not last. It will not endure. It's like that feeling you have sometimes after Christmas and all the presents are opened and you've had all the yummy food and family, and then there's sort of a melancholy, a letdown that can occur. That's like happiness, and it's dependent upon your circumstances, if they're good or not. But joy is the opposite of that. Joy is something much deeper. It's something more profound. And joy is not dependent on your particular circumstances. You can have joy on the best day of your life, but you can have a deeper joy even in the worst, heartbreaking day of your life. I've seen it in you. I've seen it in so many of you. As a pastor, I've been there in the hospital room or a hospice care center. I've been there when your spouse or your loved one breathed their final breath in their moment of death, and I've seen the grief overcome you, and I've seen tears in your eyes, and I've seen joy at that same moment. A deeper rejoicing in the goodness and the faithfulness of God, a deeper rejoicing in His grace. It's what God, through the prophet Isaiah, is showing us here in Isaiah chapter 35 as well. That there is a resource available to you that can free you from fear and bring joy into your life that isn't dependent upon your circumstances, what's actually happening. It's deeper. We see this in verses 3 and 4. Where the prophet writes, "Strengthen the weak hands and make firm the feeble knees. Say to those who have an anxious heart, be strong and fear not." And then verse 10, "They shall obtain gladness and joy, and sorrow and sighing shall flee away," run away, be pushed away. Now, if any group of people had the right to be afraid, to have weak knees, feeble knees, weak hands, and fear, it would be the people of God during this time when Isaiah is writing. In fact, for 10 chapters leading up to chapter 35, for 10 chapters, Isaiah has been proclaiming and pronouncing 6 different oracles, that is, divine words of woe, of judgment. And God's people at this time, when Isaiah is writing these words about strengthening weak hands and making firm feeble knees and having this joy and being strong and not being afraid, God's people, you might know, they were divided into 2 different kingdoms. There was the northern kingdom called Israel, the southern kingdom called Judah. And at this time, the northern kingdom is no more. It has been destroyed by the Assyrian Empire. And now the southern kingdom and the city of Jerusalem is now being surrounded. They are being threatened by those Assyrians led by King Sennacherib and thousands upon thousands of his warriors. Not only that, but Isaiah is also telling them about another empire that's looming called the Babylonian Empire, where in 586 the city of Jerusalem will be totally destroyed, the temple destroyed, and God's people taken away into exile. Did they have a reason to be afraid? Yes. But God, through the prophet Isaiah, saying there's a resource that is available that's not dependent on your circumstances, that will make you fear less and joy full. So what is it? Give me that. Well, what God is showing them here and showing us all these years later, the resource is this. It's H-O-P-E, hope. Hope. I said that these words, hope and peace and joy and love, these are interconnected. And here's the thesis. Here's the teaching for today. That your experience of this deeper rejoicing and joy that isn't dependent on circumstances, your experience of joy is directly connected to what you are hoping in. Joy is connected directly to what you are hoping for, but more specifically, what you are hoping in. And so I ask you, where do you place your hope? What are you hoping in your life? And I assume you say, oh, it's Jesus. Yes. On a good day. There's some big ones out there. Marriage and kids and career, those are big. We get married or we dream of being married or being in that relationship, and it's what I call the Jerry Maguire moment, if you remember that movie. Tom Cruise, Renee Zellweger. And Tom Cruise, his character, after a struggle, then his business has great success, but he realizes that it's incomplete because she wasn't there. His wife wasn't there. And so he goes to win her back, and he goes into the room and he says, hello. And then he says, what? You complete me. And then she says, you had me at hello. You remember that movie? And it's like, I mean, I'm the softie in my family. I get tears swelling up in my eyes. Oh, my goodness. Because we look for this love that is going to fulfill us. We put our hopes and our dreams into this person, and it will fail us. I think 9 times out of 10 problems in marriages is unfulfilled expectations that we impose really on that other person. To answer all of your hopes and all your dreams and all of your needs in your life, they can't do it. And when we put our hope in things that aren't the ultimate hope, it can produce anxiousness and anger, eventually bitterness. We do that to our kids. When our kids are good, we're good. When our kids are bad, we're bad. We can put all of our hopes and dreams and our meaning in life on the backs of our children and how well they do in school or in sports or fill in the blank. And it can be crushing to them because you're putting the meaning of your life on them. And I know there are students in the room going, yeah. Teachers and coaches and moms and dads. Or certainly a career. Oh, if only I could achieve this success. If only I could have this tax bracket. If only I could have this notoriety or acclaim. And students, you fill in the blank for yourself. This boy or this girl or this success that you're looking for, or hopes or dreams, whatever it is. What are you hoping in? Maybe it's a political candidate winning, and some of you are like really happy today, and some of you are really miserable. Or maybe you're just hoping in, I just need to be as healthy as I can be for as long as I can be. What are you hoping in? What we're hoping in is directly connected to joy. And if it's not the ultimate thing, going back to marriage, my wife is a wonderful wife, the best wife. She makes for a terrible God. And she makes for a terrible ultimate hope. If we're placing our hope in the thing that isn't the ultimate hope, it's just going to make us anxious and scared, and it's going to hurt, and it might make us angry and even bitter. So what is God showing his people of 70 BC, but his people of 2024 AD? What is the hope? Verses 1 and 2. The wilderness and the dry land shall be glad. The desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus, that's a flower. It shall blossom abundantly and rejoice with joy and singing. What is this? This is the hymn, Joy to the World. This is all of this creation renewed and transformed, this world of disease and sorrow and death made right. And heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature sing. This natural world rejoicing, being transformed. I love this analogy that God through Isaiah is using. He says, the desert shall rejoice and blossom like the crocus. The crocus is a flower. That is a terrible name for a flower. Crocus, it sounds like a dead frog. But here's the metaphor. A desert, a wilderness, lifeless, lonely, abandoned. Waters come, the rains come, the floods come, and it is transformed. This isn't AI, this isn't CGI, this is a real picture of the water that comes that can bring life and beauty. And what God is doing, he's saying, people of the time would have understood this metaphor, and he's saying, this is what I'm doing, not just for this particular desert or wilderness, for the whole world. We used to live in a garden. Because of our rejection and rebellion of God, it's become of wilderness. And one day I will make it right again. In other words, our hope as a Christian isn't simply dying and going to heaven. It isn't simply your soul going to heaven one day. That's beautiful and true and comforting, but it is God himself returning, Christ in all of his glory, and transforming and making good this whole world. Verses 5, 6, and 7, the eyes of the blind shall be opened, the ears of the deaf unstopped. The lame man will leap like a deer, the tongue of the mute sing for joy, for waters break forth in the wilderness and streams in the desert. The burning sand shall become a pool, and the thirsty ground springs of water. In other words, everything is reversed, far as the curse is found, as we sing. And everything sad becomes untrue and good and joyful. And I'm looking at you, and this is it. This is the answer to joy that goes beyond your circumstances, and some of you look disappointed. Oh man, I thought you were going to give me some cool insight where I could get instant joy if I just do this little special incantation. No, sorry, this is it. What is wrong with us as 21st century Americans? I'll tell you, a lot of our brothers and sisters in Honduras, that we partner with, and future brothers and sisters in Ethiopia, stay tuned for that opportunity. They're longing for this in a way that we are not. We in the 21st century here in Centennial, Colorado, we have greater comfortable lives than at any point ever in the entire history of the world, of humanity. We have readily accessible health care, we have education, we have homes, we have air conditioning, and we have heat, and we have food in abundance, and we have entertainment and entertainment and entertainment. Constantly, we have numbed ourselves. And at the same time, despite all of that luxury and comfort, anxiety, suicide rates, what is wrong? We're not hoping, putting our hope in what God is showing us. I have to say this real quick because I just watched the movie last night, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, the Rankin and Bass special. So it's still our tradition to watch that. Our daughter Amelia, when she was 4 years old, I just was reminded of this last night. When she was watching the movie, there's this character in the movie called the Abominable Snow Monster. You know that one? Yes. Connecting with the younger generation. The Abominable Snow Monster, and when she was 4 years old, it terrified her as he comes over the mountain and all of his teeth, and we can't watch it. Stop it. So what did I do? Fast forward to the very end. Okay, spoiler alert for a 50, 60-year-old Christmas special. At the very end, and the abominable snow monster is nice, and he's friendly, and he even puts the star on top of the tree, and it's a happy ending. And then we go back, and we can now watch the story. Why? Because we know the happy, joyful ending. Now, why did I do that? I did it because I'm an amazing, a wonderful father. I really, really am. Thoughtful. If that's true of me, why is God doing this? Because he is infinitely kinder, infinitely more loving and caring. He doesn't want you to be afraid. He wants you to know it will all be okay. Through the birth, the life, the death, the resurrection, the ascension, and the coming of Christ again to this world. Now let's wrap up with this, because I'm talking about joy and having joy, and this is the way to have joy despite your circumstances. You can have joy, and some of you are like, I can't make it go from my head to my heart. And there are people here today and at home, you have real struggles. That's why I love John the Baptist here as we conclude. John the Baptist, Jesus says, of all those born of women, none is greater than John the Baptist. And even John the Can we call him John the Lutheran, please? John the Lutheran. John the Missouri Synod Lutheran. That's who he is. Yeah. John, who led the way for God in human flesh, Emmanuel, preparing the way out there, and he's bold and he's brash with his wild clothing, and eating locusts and honey, and he's John the Baptist, and he's just out there, and he's so bold and brave, and he says, are you the one who is to come? Or shall we look for another? There's doubts. There's fear. There's uncertainty. Are you the one? John is going to be arrested. He's going to be put in prison. He's going to be executed, beheaded. Was he in that prison cell and right before that, just full of joy? Here's the thing. Here's what I've been thinking about this, and as we go into 2025 as a family and into the years ahead, can we become a place, can we be a spiritual family where it is okay to not be okay? Can we be a family where it is okay to not always be okay? Because there are those in the room today, you have moments of really crippling, dark depression and anxiety. Or there are some in the room today who have grief and sorrow over the loss of a loved one that you just can't get over. Or there are some here in the room today who have unwanted same-sex attraction or gender confusion, or you have shame, or you have addictions. Can we be a family where it's okay to not be okay and to hold on to one another, but always pointing to this hope? Because one day, when Christ returns in his glory and his majesty and he brings this day of joy, one day you will stand over that depression, you will stand over that mental illness, you will stand over that gender dysphoria, or you'll stand over your anxiety, you'll stand over that shame or that guilt or that sin, you'll stand over this thing in absolute victory because of Jesus. And you'll be who you were always meant to be. But until that day, because we live in a world, a Genesis 3 world, we still live in the present evil age. That's why we have all these struggles, fears, but that joy can still come to us. I leave you with this analogy. Again, the flower, the crocus, terrible name, crocus. But I think it's really beautiful that God chose the crocus flower in this metaphor, because the crocus, if you know, I studied this, the crocus is the first flower to bloom, to blossom, even before spring is even really there. It's such a hopeful flower. And moving from the wilderness metaphor, but in northern climates where there's snow and ice, a crocus will even blossom and bloom through the snow and through the ice. Again, even before spring is even fully there, it's already blossoming. I think that's us. It's still Genesis 3. We live in a fallen, broken world, a present evil age. And yet the kingdom of God is at hand. Not in its fullness, hasn't been fully consummated. It's not here in all of its glory. But even this very morning in this simple church with simple bread and wine, as you take and eat and take and drink, Christ himself comes to you. And that future hope and just a sip of that joy is yours with whatever is going on. And he's prepared a table in the presence of all of your enemies, in the presence of your doubt, in the presence of your fears, in the presence of your anxieties, in the presence of your idolatry, in the presence of Satan, in the presence of death itself. He prepares a table for you, and he comes to you this very day. What are you hoping for? What are you hoping in? To Christ alone be all the glory. Amen.